now time for a question period. The Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Premier. Ontario's healthcare administration is already bloated to new heights. Mr. Speaker, will the Premier scrap her plan to hire 84 new vice presidents to oversee the LHINs? Yes or no?
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me add my words of welcome to everyone who is here today. And I want to just say that in my remarks to RNAO this morning, I thanked them for being such a good partner in the development, the evolution of healthcare in this province, Mr. Speaker. They have provided guidance, they have provided advice, and they have been practical partners as we have evolved the role of nurses in the system, Mr. Speaker, and as we have worked to change the relationship, particularly in primary care, Mr. Speaker. There is a transformation of healthcare going on in this province. I understand that the Leader of the Opposition isn't supportive of that. I guess he thinks that the status quo is where we should remain. The status quo can always be improved, Mr. Speaker. We can always do better, and that's exactly what our Minister of Health is working with organizations like RNAO to do.
Mr. Speaker, back to the Premier. We already heard from the Auditor General that administration is reaching new heights, 39% on health, on home care. We're taking precious funds away from frontline care. And these hiring of these new executive vice presidents, executive paper pushers, is happening under the veil of secrecy. The growth of administration,
the member from Glengarry, Prescott Russell, come to order.
Precious funds from frontline care. The Liberals have already taken the Ministry of Health from 5 associate deputy ministers to 20. We don't need more executive bureaucrats. We need more money on the front line. To put this into context, Mr. Speaker, one of these associate deputy ministers has the same value of 5,000 home care visits. There's a real cost to this bloated administration. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the Premier put patients first, not more VPs in healthcare? It's about patients. It's about RNs. It's about doctors. Support frontline care.
Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
Minister of Health, Long-Term Care.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition can say whatever he would like to. The reality is there are no new 84 vice president positions being created. In fact, by merging the CCACs and the LHINs, if he took the time to actually read the materials and understand the policy, we are decreasing the number of management positions by 59, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, we are guaranteeing a savings as a result of decreased in management positions, a decrease in administrative costs, a savings guaranteed of 8%, financial guarantee, Mr. Speaker, and that translates into more than $10 million that will be reinvested into frontline care, into home and community care, into other important resources that people need. And, Mr. Speaker, he's just plain wrong when he suggests that somehow that there's
I'm going to request that the talking over your own minister stop. And the rebuttals from the other side. It's thin ice today.
I'll conclude, Mr. Speaker, by just imploring the Leader of the Opposition to stick to the facts. The facts are 59 fewer managers, 8% savings financially. We're investing all of that into front.
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. If I wait this long again, I'm going to warnings. Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, again to the Premier. The Minister of Health is splitting hairs, whether it's LHINs or sub-LHINs. There's 84 new vice presidents being hired in these new sub-LHINs, these giant more bureaucracy. And they can criticize anyone that doesn't agree with them. They criticize the Auditor General when the Auditor General points out we now spend 39% on administration in home care. Frankly, you're here welcoming RNAO, and RNAO has already criticized this plan to create 84 new sub-LHINs. So are you going to attack RNAO? Are you going to attack the Auditor General? There are patients out there who aren't getting care in Ontario. Our hospitals are struggling, and the government just has more spin, more talking points. When is this government going to put patients first? That's the real question.
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Thank you. The thin ice just cracked. Minister?
I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, what we're not going to do. We're not going to fire 100,000 frontline workers, many of them in the healthcare sector. We're not going to, like that government did, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to fire 10,000 frontline nurses in this province, Mr. Speaker. What we're not going to do is we're not going to make decisions to close dozens of hospitals, Mr. Speaker. In fact, what we've done, we inherited a bureaucracy in the Ministry of Health when we came into power that had more than 6,000 employees. Today, in the Ministry of Health, we have 3,053 employees. CIHI estimates our overhead, our administrative costs at 5.6%. The Leader of the Opposition himself
Minister
said
of Agriculture, come to order.
For administrative costs is between 5 and 6%. We've hit that gold standard. I can't understand what he could possibly complain about, Mr. Speaker.
No question? No question?
Mr. Speaker,
The Leader of the Opposition.
again to the Premier, I'd like to thank the RNO for joining us here today. They are amazing and tireless advocates to patients. But, Mr. Speaker, what I want to flag here today is Ontario has the lowest RN to population ratio in the country. The government can say whatever spin they want, but I repeat, Ontario has the lowest RN to population ratio in Canada. This government has let patients down. They have let RNAO down. So, Premier, directly, Mr. Speaker, directly to the Premier, how do you justify having the lowest RN to population ratio in the country? And please don't have someone else justify this. I'd like an answer from the Premier on this embarrassing statistic for Ontario.
Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm so proud of what this government has done since we took office in 2003. I think our record demonstrates our commitment right up to the present day, our commitment to nurses, the 140,000 nurses that are employed in this province. And, Mr. Speaker, that's 26,000 more nurses, including 11,000 registered nurses that have begun work in Ontario since we took office in 2003. And, in fact, Mr. Speaker, the number of nurses employed in this province has increased every single year consecutively for the 12th consecutive year. This is, Mr. Speaker, a clear and consistent trend line. More than 64% of those nurses are in full-time positions. We need to continue to increase that number. We're proud of our record. Unlike the record of the party opposite, whose record was to refer to them as hula hoops and fire them by the
Thank you. Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Finished? Finished? Thank you. Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, since the Premier does not want to answer on why we have the lowest RN population ratio in Canada, let me try something else, and maybe we can get the Premier on the record. The City of Ottawa recently closed a specialized unit in one of its long-term care homes. The unit gave extra care to those with dementia, seniors with dementia. It was a dedicated unit for seniors who needed the highest level of help. The program was meant to be funded entirely by the province, but the funding did not keep up with cost. Now the unit is closed. Mr. Speaker, why did the Liberals allow this unit, which they previously funded, to close? Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, why did you allow these seniors in Ottawa to be abandoned?
Thank you. Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's one of my privileges as Minister of Health to oversee our province's more than 600 long-term care homes, Mr. Speaker, and that is a responsibility that I take very, very seriously. And I'm proud to say that this government takes that responsibility very seriously as well. And we acknowledge and recognize that the acuity, the complexity of residents, and they are residents because this is their home, that the acuity and the complexity of those individuals is increasing as they age, as we're seeing a higher prevalence of dementia in our long-term care homes as well. And we need to modify our approach to be able to adapt to those changing realities, Mr. Speaker. That's why in last year's budget we invested an additional $10 million for behavioral supports, Mr. Speaker, for precisely those same types of patients, residents, Mr. Speaker, that need that extra specialized care so they can manage in their lives.
The member from Dufferin-Caledon, come to order, please. Final supplementary, the member from Nepean Karst.
Thank you, Speaker. Back to the Premier. Last month, I hosted a lunch and learn on dementia with the Ottawa Renfrew Alzheimer's Society, and they told me that there is a high growth of dementia in the City of Ottawa. And as you can appreciate, this unit was very important. At the same time, at the same long-term care home where an 88-year-old resident was suffocated and where another senior was charged with murder but was found unfit to stand trial because of dementia, the unit was saving lives, and the growth is going to continue for the need. But when the long-term care home turned to the local LHIN to help keep the unit open, they were told there was nothing to be had. Speaker, this is a callous disregard for those seniors struggling with dementia in the City of Ottawa. How could the Liberals allow this unit to close, and will they reopen it?
Thank you. Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've referred to in my previous response as well, that we're seeing a higher incidence and prevalence of dementia in this indeed around the world, let alone in Ontario and in Canada. And it's important that we put in place the supports that seniors and others with dementias, including Alzheimer's, that they face. It's one of the great challenges, I think, of our time. But we are making those important investments. We have provided $31 million in funding to the Alzheimer's Society, Mr. Speaker. We, as I mentioned, have increased the level of support for behavioral supports across this province, where we have mobile as well as stationary behavioral support teams of nurses and other associated professionals. And, Mr. Speaker, we are developing a province-wide dementia strategy, and I'm glad to see that the member opposite is participating in that exercise. It will allow us to have a uniform and strong approach to provide that support.
Thank you. New question, the Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you very much, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Since the Liberals came to power in 2003, how much money have people and businesses paid to private and foreign companies in Ontario's hydro system?
Thank you.
Minister of Energy.
Minister of Energy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In relation to that question, we have invested, Mr. Speaker, heavily in rebuilding our system. One of the things that we have done, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that we have a reliable system and a clean system, Mr. Speaker. Putting that on the burdens of affordability, Mr. Speaker, we want to make sure that we can make it as affordable as possible for ratepayers. We had to spend $50 billion, Mr. Speaker, in generation and transmission, cleaned up our system and made it reliable, Mr. Speaker, and we know there's been a cost to ratepayers on this, and that's been significant, and that's why we're acting, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to generation, we have hundreds of companies in this province, Mr. Speaker, that are doing a great job of ensuring that we have a reliable system, one that we can count on, Mr. Speaker, and one that we know that is clean and green and reliable. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary.
Well, Speaker, the Conservatives say the high cost of hydro is green energy, not private ownership. The Liberals say it was replacing coal with private gas plants and privatized wind power and not private ownership. What neither the Conservatives or the Liberals will talk about is that people and businesses aren't paying for the cost of power, Speaker. They're paying for power plus guaranteed profits for private and foreign companies now and for years and years to come. Can the Premier tell Ontarian, Speaker, how much privatized energy is costing them on every bill?
Minister. Be seated, please. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The one thing that the third party is not looking at, Mr. Speaker, is, for example, our nuclear generation, Mr. Speaker, something that we should be proud of in this province. The CANDU reactors are being sold around the world and creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in this province, Mr. Speaker. The refurbishment of Darlington, the refurbishment of Bruce are going to continue, Mr. Speaker, to see our GDP grow and grow and grow. They're creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in this province, Mr. Speaker, and the investments that we're seeing, like great companies, for example, in Cambridge, BWXT. I was in Port Hope, Mr. Speaker, with Cameco. Mr. Speaker, there are jobs from Ottawa to Windsor to Northern Ontario that are happening because this government invested in Ontario companies to ensure that we have generation that is going to give power that is clean and reliable and something we should be proud of, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Does the Premier believe, Speaker, that it's in the public interest for our transmission system, which is a monopoly with no competition, to be controlled by private interests for the benefit of shareholders, or would she agree that something as important as the electricity grid should be managed by the public in the public interest, in the interest of Ontarians?
Thank you. Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, if I can continue talking about the importance of what we're seeing in the generation and the transmission of companies that we have here in Ontario that are creating thousands and thousands of jobs, Mr. Speaker. And that's something that we all know will benefit our overall economy and our overall GDP, Mr. Speaker. When we have companies that are investing in Ontario and making sure that we're creating jobs in wind and in solar and in biomass, Mr. Speaker, that is something that we should be proud of, especially, again, when I talk about companies like Laker in Burlington. Fantastic work that's happening at Laker, Mr. Speaker. They're creating work and jobs. They're expanding their business. They started with 75 employees. They're now up to 150. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? They're going to expand again. And that's because this government recognized the importance of investing in generation, investing in a system that is clean and reliable, something we can all be proud of, but at the same time creating jobs in every part of this province.
Thank you. New question, the Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you so much, Speaker. My next question is also for the Premier. The Premier is promising to reduce hydro rates by taking money from healthcare and education and transit. Does the Premier understand why that makes people cynical, Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have committed to reducing the costs that people are paying on electricity, Mr. Speaker, and in fact, the Leader of the Third Party has been talking about this for some time, Mr. Speaker. I know she understands that the 8% reduction on people's bills this month was part of that, Mr. Speaker, but I know she also understands that that's not enough, that there's more that we need to do. She also needs to know that we will continue to invest more in education, more in healthcare, Mr. Speaker, and I point to the free tuition for post-secondary that starts this September, Mr. Speaker. Yes, students who are living on a low income, Mr. Speaker, will have free or better than free tuition. That's an increased support for people, Mr. Speaker. That's an increased support for our education system, and I know that the Leader of the Third Party would support that.
Thank you. Supplementary.
For nearly 14 years, Speaker, as an MPP, Cabinet Minister and Premier, this Premier has driven up hydro bills. She's ignored the people of Ontario. And now with an election on the horizon, she claims to suddenly get it. But as Libby Keenan You remember Libby Keenan, the farmer from Essex that she met at Queen's Park, wrote in an open letter, and I'm going to quote Libby, "Your political ambitions have run amok, and your priorities have little to do with the people you were elected to serve." End quote. Does the Premier understand, Speaker, how frustrated people are with the hydro crisis that this Liberal government has created in our province?
Mr. Speaker, I was privileged to meet with Libby, and I have spoken to many people across the province, Mr. Speaker, about their concerns on electricity prices. That's exactly why, Mr. Speaker, we began some time ago to reduce electricity costs, to take costs out of the system, Mr. Speaker, to put in place programs like the Ontario Energy Support Program for people living on low income, the 8% that came into play in January, Mr. Speaker, and that people will see on their bills. That's part of the strategy. But, Mr. Speaker, there's more that we need to do. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, my political ambition has been to make life better for people in this province, to make sure that education, health care, a clean, renewable electricity grid, infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, support for people in their lives today, and strong economic growth into the future. That's my political ambition, Mr. Speaker.
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Final supplementary.
This week, people saw that the Liberal government will pass legislation to stop hydro disconnections, but only if they got the credit. The Liberals will make promises to lower bills, Speaker, but only if they see a political benefit. The Premier thinks hydro costs are unacceptable, but only after 14 years of making things worse, making those bills unacceptable, Speaker. Can the Premier explain why people's problems don't really seem to matter at all until they become political problems for the Liberal Party?
Thank you. Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said, we have been working for some time to take costs out of the system. Long before, actually, the leader of the third party was going on this subject day after day, Mr. Speaker, we were already renegotiating the Samsung deal, Mr. Speaker, making a decision not to build new nuclear, which was in the order of a $15 billion savings, Mr. Speaker. That's a cost that will not be put into the electricity system, Mr. Speaker. Making sure that there was a low-income support program in place, Mr. Speaker. Taking the HST, the provincial portion of the HST, off people's bills, Mr. Speaker. I recognize that this is a concern of people across the province. That is why, before the budget, Mr. Speaker, we will bring out further measures to help people with their electricity bills.
Thank you. New question, the member from Leeds, Grenville.
Thanks, Speaker. My question's to the Premier. We know yesterday the Liberals received the Provincial Teddy Waste Award for their luxury car subsidy. It happens to be a subsidy that gives $14,000 checks for buying $100,000 Tesla cars. But just a few years ago, here's a quote from the Premier, and I quote, "If anybody is paying that amount of money for a car, they probably don't need a $5,000 rebate." No, apparently, Speaker, what she meant was $5,000 wasn't enough for her Liberal friends. Mr. Speaker, why are luxury car owners being given $14,000 checks from Ontario taxpayers? And Premier, why the sudden U-turn?
Thanks very much, Speaker. Of course, I want to begin by thanking the member opposite for the question and for him expressing, I would say, belated interest in what is a very successful program that our government put forward starting a number of years ago, Speaker. I'm not completely sure that members of the legislature are aware of all of the details that are contained in this program that's been growing with respect to its subscription or its popularity over the last number of months and years. So, Speaker, just to be really clear about this, back in 2010, this government actually launched our first electric vehicle incentive program, Speaker. To date, this program has provided Ontarians with incentives to help purchase close to 7,400 electric vehicles and approximately 1,900 home and workplace chargers, Speaker. On average, of course, some electric vehicles can cost up to 85% more compared to equivalent conventional gas-powered vehicles, Speaker. The list goes on with respect to the progress this program has made. Be happy to provide additional information to that member and members of the House in the follow-up question. Thanks very much.
Again, back to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, the government announced the changes to the $14,000 Tesla luxury car subsidy on February 1st. And according to his LinkedIn profile, Ian Mearns, Minister Murray's former Chief of Staff, started working for Tesla in February. Mr. Speaker, was this just a coincidence? When was the decision made? How was the decision made? This certainly doesn't pass the smell test, Speaker.
So, Speaker, again, I thank the member for the follow-up question. You know, Speaker, there are a whole host of reasons that our government are making. We are making significant investments. We are making significant investments that run the full gamut of helping to ensure.
The member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, come to order. The member from Bruce Grey, Owen Sound, come to order. And thank you. We're now in warnings. Carry on.
Speaker, as I was saying, there are a whole host of very, very positive reasons that we are making a wide range of investments to ensure that the transport.
The member from Dufferin-Caledon is warned. Carry on.
To make sure, Speaker, that the transportation sector, which currently accounts for 35% of the greenhouse gas emissions that are produced in the province of Ontario, is reduced. It's why we're investing in transportation solutions to lower those amounts right across the province, Speaker. But the other really important thing that the member from Leeds-Grenville misses is that these are the kinds of programs that are helping to feed the innovation and the job creation in the leading sectors in our economy, Speaker. It's why we are working hard to make. Thank you.
Member from Timmins, James Bay.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Premier, hydro prices is a real issue for real people. It is not an abstract thing. There are citizens across this province and businesses across this province who are being hurt. And I want to give you but one story. In Kapuskasing lives Monsieur and Madame Sylvain, Oliva Sylvain. They have to heat with wood because there's no natural gas where they live. They're off the grid. They use electricity only as a backup to wood if the wood fire was to go out, but they're there all the time. They used to pay about $275 a month for their electricity bill, but it started to go up some years ago, so they decided to take your advice and that of your ministers and to do everything they could to reduce their electricity bill by reducing consumption. They have taken stuff offline. They have bought all of the LED lights they can get. They've done everything they're able to reduce their hydro bill, but yet it went up. This month they get their hydro bill. It's $375.
Question.
How can anybody have confidence in your government when they do what you say they're going to do, and yet their bill still goes up?
Thank you.
Minister of Energy.
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question and for explaining the situation that many families in Northern Ontario are facing. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important to recognize that those in the north and in rural areas are seeing their bills go up, and that's why we're going to take more action. We did come forward with the RRP reduction of $60, Mr. Speaker, that they're seeing on their bills. And the one thing that is important to recognize when it comes to conservation programs, Mr. Speaker, is they do work. They do work in the sense that when we conserve energy, if every household continues to save energy, to conserve energy, Mr. Speaker, we don't need to build more generation. And if we don't need to build more generation, Mr. Speaker, we can keep our costs on a downward rate. And that's what we're going to continue to do. But in that instance, and I don't know the full story about the couple from Kapuskasing, but I do recognize, Mr. Speaker, that in the north and in rural parts of Ontario, we can do more and we will do more, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Minister, it doesn't work for Oliva. He's done everything, along with his wife, they can do to reduce consumption. They're doing what you asked them, but their bill still goes up. And this is why people are so frustrated. It's not just the fact that they pay more, it's a question they do everything to save, and yet it still goes up. So why don't you admit that your entire hydro policy is a failure, and what we really need to do is to find a solution to reduce their hydro bills and stop talking about it and do something to help Monsieur and Madame Sylvain.
Thank you. Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I wonder when they were in power and they cancelled the conservation programs, if that actually helps the families that we had to reinstitute, Mr. Speaker. We had to rebuild the entire system, and that comes with a cost, Mr. Speaker. For all families in Ontario, the one thing that we've done, Mr. Speaker, is we phased out coal. That's actually, Mr. Speaker, helped every family in this province. By phasing out coal, we've saved $4.3 billion in our healthcare system. We're seeing 23% reduction in air pollution deaths and 41% reduction, Mr. Speaker, in air pollution hospitalizations. We've built a system, Mr. Speaker, that people can rely on. We no longer see rolling brownouts or blackouts, but we know, Mr. Speaker, that we can do more. We want to see more conservation. We want to see a stronger grid, and we'll make sure, Mr. Speaker, that we find ways to helping that family in Kapuskasing and all families around the province.
New question. New question. The member from Kitchener-Conestoga.
To the Premier. As this government considers pay increase proposals for Metrolinx executives, we see more examples of how the Liberals' transit agency can't get anything right. The latest, a $770 million 182-train disputed contract with Bombardier that, after years of delay, has devolved into a war of words and legal threats.
Get anything right.
Now, it's no secret that some of the projects where the Liberals had planned to send the 182 light rail vehicles have fallen off of the rails, leading some to wonder if Metrolinx is trying to sneak out and avoid paying for these trains they ordered. Those suspicions grow when we learned that Bombardier has had a test vehicle ready for inspection since October. The media saw it yesterday, yet Metrolinx refuses to inspect after filing for contract termination. So, Premier, it's a mess. Can you explain what the heck is going on here?
Thank you. Premier.
Minister of Transportation.
Minister of Transportation.
Yeah, thanks very much, Speaker. You know, it's always remarkable to me to hear the member from Kitchener-Conestoga, frankly, any member from the Conservative ranks, stand up and talk about challenges that might be faced in the transportation and transit realm. Speaker, everybody in this legislature, everybody watching at home, everybody across the province knows, Speaker, that literally year after year, month after month, decade after decade, that party has had no plan to invest in transit, Speaker. It's had no plan to put forward initiatives that would suggest that we'd ever be able to transform GO, that we would build LRTs. Speaker, we all know the story, but it bears repeating. It's important for people to be reminded of the fact that they killed and filled the Eglinton subway project the last time they were in power, Speaker, that literally every single year, every single provincial budget I've seen since I became a member of provincial parliament that's contained unprecedented amounts for transit and transportation has been rejected by that member, by their leader, by this party, Speaker, and yet they have the audacity to ask a question on this particular topic.
Supplementary.
Yeah, he has the audacity not to answer the actual question that I actually asked.
He doesn't know what he's doing.
Speaker, it was this Liberal government that negotiated the terms of the contract, and now we're going to foot the bill for their mismanagement, not just for the delays running right through the entire $770 million deal, but now for legal proceedings and a potential new tendering process for a replacement. Meantime, Bombardier claims everything is on track for the 2021 delivery. Speaker, everything this government's transit planners at Metrolinx set their sights on, it runs off the rails, with the cost going directly, of course, to who? The taxpayers. Up Express, upside-down bridge trusses, and now LRV trains. The people of Ontario aren't asking for much here. They just want their trains that they've paid for. Speaker, will the Premier tell us when will we get our LRVs, and how many millions more will we have to actually pay for them?
They have no pay.
Yeah, so, Speaker, I appreciate the follow-up. Listen, on this side of the House, this Premier and our government, here's what we're doing in transit, Speaker. We are standing up for the people of Waterloo Region. We are investing to make sure that the ION LRT is delivered on time. We're standing up for the people of the GTHA, Speaker. We're building GO Regional Express Rail. We're building LRTs along here, Ontario, in Hamilton, Speaker, along Eglinton with the Crosstown, along Finch West, Speaker, with the Finch West LRT. We are literally building transit. We're expanding expanding in Niagara, we're expanding in Bowmanville, we are building transit every single day of the week, Speaker. The challenge I have with that question is it sounds to me like it was written by Bombardier. We're here on the side of the people of Ontario to build the transit, to deliver the positive outcomes. We're going to continue to focus on that, Speaker. I would encourage that member to get on side with the people of his own community and help us deliver the outcomes they're expecting.
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. A very start the clock. A very soft reminder that I've already said that the warnings are on, and if you don't think I'm going to, then let's find out. New question. The member from Nickel Belt.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier.
Nurses, many of them are here with us, devote their lives to providing great care. That care is based on needs, not on ability to pay. Nurses are strong advocates for the determinants of health. They know that better incomes means better health. That's why nurses, like New Democrat, support a $15 an hour minimum wage. So why is the Premier refusing to support a $15 an hour minimum wage when all of the nurses are telling her it's the right thing to do?
Mr. Speaker, I know the Minister of Labour is going to want to comment on our strategy around minimum wage and the work that we have done in that area. But I want to just say to the member opposite that this morning when I spoke to RNAO, I made that exact point, that they have been partners in guiding us in health care, in the evolution of the health care system, Mr. Speaker, but they have also been strong advocates in advocating for strong determinants of health, Mr. Speaker. They understand very well that housing and the child care and that decent wage and lack of precarious work, that all of those things feed into healthy outcomes, Mr. Speaker. We appreciate their advocacy. We appreciate working with them on the health care issues, Mr. Speaker, but also on those important social justice issues as well, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, everyday nurses see the impact of poverty and low wages on the patient's health. Poverty is the #1 determinant of health in Ontario. People cannot live healthy lives when they cannot afford nutritious food, when they're working 2 or 3 part-time, low-paying jobs that still can't make ends meet. Under this government, nearly 1 in 10 workers is taking home a minimum wage that leaves them on the edge of poverty or below. We have to raise the minimum wage to improve the health of the most vulnerable workers of this province. When will this Premier start listening to all of the nurses that came here today and many more that are here to tell you and finally support a $15 minimum wage in Ontario?
Question. Thank you.
Minister of Labour.
Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for that question. I think you've got a government on this side of the House that I think has been working very, very hard to make sure that minimum wage is tied to the rate of inflation. Between 1996 and 2003, the minimum wage was frozen. It was frozen at $6.85. Since taking office in 2003, Speaker, we have raised that 9 times, Speaker. 9 times since 2003, and we've made those changes based on the advice of a group we got together. We had poverty advocates, we had organized labour, we had business. They wanted predictability, Speaker, and they wanted to make sure it was fair.
Finish, please.
Thank you, Speaker. And when we held those hearings, Speaker, a lot of people came to the table, a lot of advice from the people of Ontario, a lot of advice from business, from organized labour. Who didn't we get advice from, Speaker? Who made absolutely no submission to that panel? The New Democratic Party, Speaker.
Any question? The member from Ottawa, Vanier.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Immigration and Citizenship. I've met with a lot of people Muslim, they raise their worries concerning discrimination actions.
Live in an open and inclusive society. However, we have observed recently that our province is not immune to displays of Islamophobia in our neighbourhoods. Mr. Speaker, can the minister inform this House what the government is doing to address systemic racism, including Islamophobia, across the province?
Thank you. Minister of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from Ottawa-Vanier for this important question. And Mr. Speaker, I know that MPPs have been meeting with the Muslim community leaders across our province, and I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that there is no room in Ontario for racism, and there is no room in Ontario for Islamophobia. Ontario must and will lead the way to build a society where all people can live free from fear, from racism, from hate speech, and from violence. Our ministry has directly challenged Islamophobia by funding a public education awareness campaign called BreakingTheBehavior.ca through the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants. Our province, from its earliest days, has been built on immigration, and our province is committed to building a society where all people of all backgrounds live free of fear.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, the Minister. Diversity is very important in Ontario, and 60% of
Over the years, the Muslim community has contributed significantly to the richness of Ontario's cultural fabric, economic growth, and humanitarian initiatives. However, the devastating tragedy in Quebec City has awakened fear. Speaker, can the minister share what the government is doing to ensuring that Ontarians of Muslim faith feel welcome and safe in this province?
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I want to thank the member for the question. I want to reiterate that our government does not tolerate any form of racism or discrimination against any group. Mr. Speaker, I would like to highlight that later this afternoon, the member from Ottawa-Vanier will bring forward an important motion to for debate. And as you know, and as we heard yesterday, the Premier has appointed Minister Michael Coteau as Minister responsible for anti-racism. And we heard yesterday from the Minister that he has held 10 public meetings across Ontario. He heard stories and spoke about the devastating impacts of systemic racism. And we also heard that we're bringing forward a plan, a provincial plan, very soon to address systemic racism. Mr. Speaker, we are strongly committed to addressing systemic racism and believe that all Ontarians deserve to feel safe and included.
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Be seated, please. No question. The member from Chatham-Kent, Essex.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Premier. Rickman Farms is a quail farm in Chatham-Kent that was once expanding, but is now struggling to keep up with the costs of doing business in Ontario. In November, their hydro bill, their electricity usage was $590. However, the total bill came to a ridiculous $5,900 thanks to a delivery charge of nearly $1,800 and a massive global adjustment fee of over $2,700. That's not an adjustment, Speaker. That's highway robbery. His bill was 10 times his electricity usage. Scott and Cheryl Rickman are doing what they can to survive. Your government, Premier, isn't doing enough. So, Speaker, to the Premier.
Question.
How can Rickman Farms and all Ontario businesses account for such outrageous extra fees?
Thank you.
Minister of Energy.
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank for the question, because it is important for us to talk about the investments that we had to make after the system that they left was in a mess, Mr. Speaker. Those farms wouldn't have been around. Many businesses wouldn't have been around, Mr. Speaker, if we would have continued to have rolling brownouts and blackouts. It's catastrophic for a business, Mr. Speaker.
Member from Prince Edward Hastings is warned. Anyone else? Thank you. Minister.
It's catastrophic for a business, Mr. Speaker, when it can't even turn the lights on. We invested in a system.
Member from Huron-Bruce is warned. And if I sit down and it happens again, I'll get the next person.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but we know that there are some businesses out there, along with families and other ratepayers, Mr. Speaker, that are having a hard time with those type of bills, Mr. Speaker. So we invested in building a system, and we've also invested in putting forward programs that will help many of these businesses, Mr. Speaker. If they're large enough, they qualify for the ICI program, the IEI program, demand response, Mr. Speaker, and many others. If they're a part of the retail price plan, Mr. Speaker, they've got an 8% reduction, and the Save on Energy program is helping businesses like that and many others.
Thank you. New question. The member from supplementary. Sorry, moving from supplementary. Member from Bruce Grey and South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Pat Cottrell and Peter Nipfel are small business operators, and they are hurting under this Liberal government's failed energy policies. They're finding it harder and harder to stay in business. In 2011, the cost for electricity was $8,000 per year. Today, at $37,000 a year in hydro bills, Pat's seasonal family campground won't be able to stay in business. It's unaffordable. Unbelievable. And with Peter's hydro bills at $119,100 a year, a 120% higher than in 2003, how long can his store keep absorbing the costs of Liberal mistakes and mismanagement and ideology? To make matters worse, the Wynne Liberals have slapped a $2 billion cap-and-trade tax on Ontarians struggling to make ends meet. I want to know, Mr. Speaker, the Premier says she is listening. However, her policies and ideals are forcing businesses to either shut down or move out of Ontario. Why should anyone trust the Liberals' energy plan any more today than the past 4 years under her leadership?
Hear, hear. Thank you, Minister.
Minister of Economic Development and Growth.
Minister of Economic Development and Growth.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister of Energy indicated, that very business will be getting 8% off their energy bill as a small business, which actually is
The member from Bruce Grey Owen Sound is warned. Finish, please.
In time, Mr. Speaker, the member is dead wrong when he says that Ontario is uncompetitive when it comes to businesses. Just look at what we've done on the tax side. The capital tax saved our businesses $2.3 billion a year. Our corporate tax rate saving businesses $2.5 billion a year. Even the Leader of the Opposition yesterday in Mississauga had this to say. We have an advantage right now with our corporate taxation rate. Mr. Speaker, maybe the member ought to connect with his leader. For a change, he was reading out of the fact part of the library instead of the fiction part. It was good to see. It's a first, and we're very pleased that the Leader of the Opposition is actually using facts in the legislature for a change.
Thank you. Your question, the member from Windsor West.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. For months, hospitals in Windsor have been bursting at the seams. Patients who already face long wait times are waiting even longer. Some are even being admitted without a bed. Hospitals are forced to choose between performing a surgery and admitting a patient. The state of healthcare in Windsor has truly reached a tipping point. Will the Premier admit that years of chronic underfunding and frozen budgets have put families at risk?
Health and long-term care.
Premier, Minister of Health, long-term care.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And perhaps I can begin by thanking our hospital workers, our nurses, our physicians, all of those that work in the hospital, because it has been a difficult flu season, Mr. Speaker, that there have been a number of capacity issues because the outbreak of flu this winter season was worse than it was last year. Fortunately, of course, the flu vaccine was an almost exact match to the flu that we have seen, but that did bring some specific and time-limited problems and challenges to our hospitals, including, if the member opposite has listened to the leadership, the hospital leadership themselves, that they will attribute a lot of what they saw due to the flu outbreak itself, including in the Windsor region. But, Mr. Speaker, it's important that Ontarians understand not only do the vast majority of the more than 150 hospitals in the province exist far below that 100% capacity, but the investments that we're making are making a fundamental difference in terms of them addressing those challenges.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. I actually called the minister's office about the crisis with the outbreak of the flu at our hospitals, and what I was told is tough luck. The cupboard's bare. The doctors and nurses that you just applauded will just have to make do. It's the same answer we got when over 150 nurses, registered nurses in Windsor, received pink slips. Again.
Tough luck. The member from Beaches East York is warned. I had a choice. Finish, please.
Thank you, Speaker. Again to the Premier. Hospitals should be equipped to deal with an influx of patients during flu season, yet this government's chronic underfunding leaves hospitals and healthcare workers scrambling to fill the gaps. Emergency department wait times in Ontario have reached their highest point in 9 years. In Windsor, at least 20 surgeries have been cancelled because hospitals simply do not have enough resources. Will the Premier finally admit that her government has let patients down and commit to providing enough funding to allow our hospitals to meet the needs of our community?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, and I don't want to attribute everything to the flu, but it's important to understand that for Windsor hospitals, as of December 31st of 2016, the Windsor Hospital, the Metro site was 84% capacity. The Maryvale site, is that correct? It says Mary Valley here. It was at 68%, and the Willette site was at 94%, Mr. Speaker. So the 3% increase in hospital funding that we announced as part of last year's budget and last fall, that nearly $500 million makes a big difference. What doesn't make a difference is if we follow what the NDP did by closing 24% of all the acute hospitals in the province and 13% of the mental health beds. And I know every single one well of my 25 staff, and they would never respond. And everybody in this legislature knows they would never respond to an inquiry like that, Mr. Speaker.
Never. Thank you. New question, the member from Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Education. As a mom of 2 young boys, I know that good schools become great schools when parents are engaged in their children's learning. Research shows a positive link between parent engagement and student achievement and well-being. The greater the support that families provide for their children's learning and educational progress, the more likely their children will do well in school and continue in their education. I understand that as of this morning, the parents reaching out grants applications are now open for the 2017-18 school year. Speaker, through you to the Minister, can you tell us more about the importance of this program and what this means for our students?
Thank you. Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member from Davenport for her question and for always speaking out on behalf of her schools and her riding. This program is important because research shows a positive link between parent engagement and student achievement and well-being, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we want to make it easier for more parents across the province to participate in their child's learning and well-being inside and outside of the classroom. The Parent Reaching Out grants, or the PRO-grants, are supporting projects across the province that help parents to tackle these everyday challenges, and it gives them an opportunity to be more involved in their child's learning and in their school community. We've made these grants available to school councils, parent involvement committees, and not-for-profit organizations working with parents to help remove barriers to parents getting involved in their child's learning, and I am pleased that today the grants are now open for applications.
Thank you. Supplementary.
So thank you, Minister. I'm pleased to hear that we are enabling local solutions to enhance parent engagement in support of the achievements and well-being of students. And I couldn't agree with you more when you talk about the need to make it easier for more parents across the province to support their children's learning and well-being inside and outside the classroom. Through past projects, students and parents in my riding of Davenport have had access to funding for these special projects. One project that comes to mind was put forward by the Toronto Catholic District School Board's St. Rita's Catholic School, actually my very own old elementary school, where sessions were organized for parents to support their children's math skills. Minister, can you please tell us more about what our government is doing to enhance parent engagement and support of children's learning and well-being?
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you again to the member from Davenport. Being a parent can present overwhelming demands at times, whether it's helping with math homework, encouraging our children to pick up a book and read, or just worrying about online safety. And that's why, since 2006, the government has awarded over 19,500 programs to school councils and 799 regional provincial grants, a total investment of nearly $31 million. Some examples of projects include Family Math Night for parents and students to work together through math activities and learn more about the math curriculum, workshops for parents to learn more about cyberbullying and awareness and prevention to ensure we keep our students safe when they're online. Today's news is proof to Ontarians that our youngest learners and their parents, the adults involved in their lives, and in their education are working together and are focused on their path to success. I encourage all members of the House to share this news with their communities.
Thank you. New question, the member from Simcoe Grey.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Finance. Minister, my question is simple. Craft brewers and wineries are taxed through a graduated per-litre tax rate, which allows lower taxes for smaller producers. Craft distillers, on the other hand, are penalized by much higher rates of taxation. In fact, their tax rate is 10 times the rate that the wine industry enjoys for sales at its own on-site vineyard shops. Minister, why are craft distillers not taxed the same as craft brewers and wineries in our province?
Minister of Finance.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question, and the member may know that we have been in deliberations with the craft distillers over some time. They recognize that we've increased their margins from 39% to 45% as we proceed forward with the changes we made in the recent fall economic statement, and we are continuing to do even more. But it's critical that even members of the craft distillery industry have welcomed the changes that we've made and are encouraged by the steps that we're taking going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Minister, I don't know who you're listening to because we've all had meetings with craft distillers across the province. Steve Clark, member for Leeds Grenville, is meeting with the association on behalf of our caucus regularly, and they're very disappointed with your new tax rules. BD Distilleries in my own riding as a potato vodka distillery. Their choice now is they can, and watch this folks, they can either pay 139.7% markup to the LCBO to sell their product, or a 61.5% sales tax recently added by your government. Those are the highest taxes in the entire nation. BC allows the first 50,000 litres to be sold tax-free with no provincial tax. That's what they're looking for, a model after the BC model. If BC can do it and support BC farmers and BC products, why can't we do the same in Ontario?
Thank you.
So, Mr. Speaker.
Seated, please. Thank you. Minister.
And these seems to be alternative facts that are coming from the opposition, and I'll tell you why. We actually...
I'm going to caution us against using any of those kind of catchphrases that we're adopting from some other place. So let's just keep things. Let's just keep things on the parliamentary level, please.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm just trying to remind the member opposite of the facts. And the facts are we reduced the overall tax rate for craft distillery in the last go-around. And we are looking at graduation going forward, similar to what we've done with the wine industry, for example, Mr. Speaker. Those discussions are on right now. And they've always recognized that we were proceeding in that form. And we also recognize that the grain industry and the agri-food business are reliant on spirits as well. And that impact on our economy is tremendous. That's why we're working closely with the industry. Furthermore, the craft distillers who got involved were involved under an old tax regime that was higher, which they were recognized to be the case. We've made it better, and we know we can do more. That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary. A new question, the member from Hamilton Mountain.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health.
More than 10 years ago, my constituent, Travis Bailey, was mistaken for someone else and was shot in the head. As a result, he has a severe brain injury. CCAC has been cutting his care and has never been able to meet his complex needs. Instead, he found a private provider with trained staff to work with brain-injured patients, and he's been using his criminal injury compensation to pay for it. That money will run out in a few days, money he should never have had to use for his services in the first place. Yeah. How can the minister allow an innocent victim of extreme violence to suffer in this way?
Thank you. Minister of Health, Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question. And I can't begin to imagine the challenges that this individual has faced. No fault of his own, Mr. Speaker. Not that that should matter. It is a tragic case. I can't, not having all the details, I can't and shouldn't speak to the specifics, but I am certainly more than willing, enthusiastic, in fact, to discuss this particular individual with the member opposite, to see if there might be something that can be done. At the foundation of this, Mr. Speaker, is we rely on and expect our CCACs to provide, through assessment, through objective assessment of the needs of any individual, to provide the level of care that they can according to the situation, and I would anticipate that that is being done in this case, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Just so the minister knows, I've been working with his office for over a year on this file, and it's still outstanding. Speaker, in a response to a question I asked a couple of years ago about acquired brain injury, the Minister of Health at the time, now the Chair of Cabinet, said, and I'll quote, "We are transforming health care. If services can be provided in the community, they should receive those services in the community," end of quote. Speaker, I would like to know, did the Minister at that time forget to mention that services in the community would be private and that people would have to pay for it? Will the current minister step in, make sure that Travis Bailey is reimbursed, and ensure that he gets the care he needs from this point forward?
Thank you. Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do know that that my staff have been working with the office of the member opposite for some time on this. Certainly, it isn't necessarily or always straightforward. I would hope that the member understands that I would want to do whatever we could under this and other circumstances, but we need to follow a process that is uniform for all Ontarians across this province. But I am, of course, as I mentioned in the first part of the question, I am more than willing to have a conversation with the member opposite and to see if in this specific case there might be something else that can be done, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. New question, the member from Scarborough-Agincourt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care. Our government is proud to stood alongside the nurses since 2003. We recognize the contribution of nurses in Ontario healthcare system. In my riding of Scarborough-Agincourt, we have incredible contribution by our nurses. Recently, I had the pleasure of meeting nurses in RNAO Region 7, and I want to thank each one of you every day what you do with Ontario, but more importantly, to champion for causes that matters to your patient every day.
Chair,
whether it's no smoking bylaws, childhood obesity, helmet safety, that's what you do. Thank you for being a champion. Mr. Speaker, today is the RNAO Day at Queen's Park, and I'm so excited for each one of my colleagues who are joining us here today. Mr. Speaker, through you to the Minister, can he please speak about the invaluable work our nurses provide to Ontarians every day?
Thank you. Minister of Health, Long-Term Care.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I too want to thank the more than 140,000 nurses in this province, many of whom are with us here today. And it doesn't matter, perhaps this is a good way to end, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't matter whether you're an ER nurse working in Clinton, Ontario, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't matter if you're a nurse practitioner working in a long-term care home or providing that essential home care to a frail elderly individual in their home, working in our correctional facilities, Mr. Speaker. There are more than 100,000 nurses that each and every day go to work to make a difference in the lives of others. I can't imagine what we would do without even a single one less, Mr. Speaker. The commitment that they make, the compassion that they demonstrate, the difference that they make in this province each and every day, it needs to be championed and applauded, and I thank them for that work, and will continue to work with them to improve the situation that they work under each and every day. Thank you.
There are no deferred votes. This House stands recessed until 1 p.m. this afternoon.